Good evening, everyone. I am Banat Farahi. I'm assistant professor and director of the critical matter group here at MIT Media Lab. I also hold inaugural Morningside Academy for Design professorship, which I'm really excited. So I actually hold the best of the two worlds. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Morningside Academy for Design, MAD, as well as Media Lab, to this very exciting conversation. I have pleasure of sharing the stage with both Tony and Paola back in December during the Design Miami. Tony Fadell is the Morningside Academy for Design's inaugural designers in residence, our first designer in residence. Yes. So MAD launched the Designer in Residence program to invite the leading designers and practitioners to campus for short-term residency to foster exchange between MIT community and the leading design voices. MAD Designer in Residence, it's really about highlighting the design as a mode of discovery and collaborations between disciplines. In his first visit, Tony have met with many faculty and students and different labs, and he shared his experience, which I hope it was inspiring, and also inspire our community. And Tony will come back in January for a short visit to run a workshop during IAP period with our students. We are also extremely delighted to have Paola Antonelli in conversation with Tony. So I'm not giving the introduction to Tony, Paola will, but I'm going to give the introduction to Paola. Paola Antonelli is the senior curator of architecture and design and the founding director of research and developments at the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA. An architect by training, her highly influential work investigates design in all forms, from architecture to game design, with the goal of promoting design's positive influence on the world and fostering restorative practices. Recognized by Time magazine as one of the 25 most incisive design visionaries, she is recipient of numerous awards, including Smithsonian National Design Awards and London Design Awards, and many more. Paola has a long-standing relationship with MIT, which we are very lucky. She has formerly serving as advisory council member for MIT Media Lab, as well as participating in numerous events at MIT. With that, we are extremely excited about their conversation, and with that, please help me welcoming both Paola and Tony onto the stage.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Benaz, so much. And it's a delight to be back in this room because we ran symposia in here gloriously a few years ago, and it's fabulous to be here with you. And I want to thank Elise for this fabulous, it's a great slide. It's really beautiful. And actually, it shows us together. And, we met, I was just now, I have this really bad trait. When I like people, I forget how I met them. It's very funny. It's like they're part of my life. I don't know when, I don't know how. So I was asking Tony, how did we meet? And he said that I reached out to him and I asked to meet him when he was still at Apple in 2008. Thank you for remembering that. But so it's very telling that Tony is the first designer in residence for the Morningside Academy because even though he did not go to MIT, he really represents the multifaceted approach to technology, design, and even art that MIT has. So just a very brief introduction to let people know where you come from. So Tony is from Detroit, or Detroit.
Motown.
Motown. And that's, I like to think that that's very telling, but he's from Detroit. And he went to UMich, to University of Michigan, where he studied computer engineering. Then out of computer engineering, he already had this sense of design being a fundamental part of engineering and of the world. I mean, it's what makes whatever engineers do into life for people. So he already had this sensation in his mind. And then he was part of the legendary General Magic company, which in a way was the actual funder of the inventors of really the smartphone. And so was our own MIT Megan Smith, our own star. She was also General Magic.
She's out there somewhere. Where's Megan?
She's here. Where are you, Megan?
There's the other magician.
Yeah, I mean, Megan, General Magician. And by the way, there's a great movie about General Magic if you want to see the two of them together when they were just like coming out of the egg. Anyway, so after General Magic, he went to Philips, where he started the portable electronic devices division. After that, you went straight to Apple?
No, I had another startup, my own
Oh
startup.
yeah, Fuse.
Fuse.
Fuse. So that was like a hard drive music startup, and then after that, Apple, where he is considered the father of the iPod, because he started with the iPod, and actually the iPod is at MoMA, and that's probably where we met. The iPod. We also, when we show it, we also have like fake to like make people realize what it felt like. And then also the first generation iPhone. And after that, he left and he founded Nest. It's almost like a talking thermostat. It's not talking, but the thermostat that I'm sure you either have or you have seen. And after that, he left Nest and he started what he's doing right now, which is to start many other companies. He started Build Collective, which is a company that advises startups and invests. So you see, all of these adventures make me really admire him, because I am such a coward, and I've been at MoMA for 31 years because I'm scared of my own shadow. So this is the first thing that I want to connect with you being here at MIT. I'm starting from the end. You've been here, I think, 48 hours or not even, right? But already you're starting to feel how you can be used here. Right?
Absolutely.
So
already.
What are you thinking? Even though it's early to know what you're going to do, but what are you thinking?
Okay.
What is boiling in your stomach?
Well, first, I want to thank you, and I thank Hashim and Jono and all the staff for such a warm welcome and adopting me in a way to come and be the inaugural designer here in residence. And I want to also thank all of you for the warm welcome and to show up and come today. So thank you so much. But in 48 hours, besides the warm welcome and lots of great food, Lebanese food and all that stuff,
you're Lebanese too. He's Lebanese and Polish. Yeah, sorry.
I think the thing that I see, and you see this in most of the projects, everyone has kind of a passion project they're working on. Everything's project-based here. And they go through sometimes the technology they're working on, and they want to create a product or create something out of that. Or they see a product that needs to get fixed, and so they work on that. But they really have this, what they want to do. And what happens, and I attended this thing called Sunday. It's a hackathon that happens every Sunday, all about AI and next generation interfaces and applications. And everybody's talking about the what. And they're putting together all these Lego blocks, Lego block and Lego block. And isn't it cool if, and isn't it cool if? And I think Megan will remember this. We did this kind of, isn't it cool if, at General Magic. And we had the smartest people in the planet. This was the original team that created the Macintosh. And they were going to go off and create what was the iPhone just 15 years too early. And we were putting all the pieces of what together. But we really didn't understand the why. Really understand what it was behind the product. What problems were we really trying to solve? For whom? Did they really have those problems?
You were missing design.
We were missing design.
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of engineers impressing the other engineer or next to them. So we were like, isn't that cool? Yeah, that's cool. Put that in, put that in, put that in. And by the time we shipped, we didn't actually have a pulse on the market. And when we shipped, the internet had just shown up. And it took 4 years, and it was a disaster. Well, we all learned from it, and there were so many, and you should watch the movie because I don't want to give it all away, but what came out of it and what we learned from that was not just about how to make better products, but to have better whys. And then you see the people at General Magic, the next generation, go off and do incredible things well beyond General Magic. And so when I look at the teams here and the people doing everything, I keep asking the why, the why, the why. Because even when we see they might get the right product why, they might understand the pain, and then they go over to the business school and they get the how to build a business, and they go over here to how to maybe scale up the manufacturing. They still don't understand the why for the customer. And what I mean by that is from the time they've never even heard about the product till the time they use the product or test it or whatever, and that whole journey that goes along with that, that whole why also needs to be discovered. And it was a lot of the magic of what I learned at Apple and then perfected over at Nest, was that customer journey and that symphony that you create about how somebody learns about it through other people or whatever way, and the emotional experience they go through, both rational and emotional experience they go through to try the product and then maybe make it part of their lives.
So this is what you want to implement here. You want
that,
to
yeah, that's I really think that something around deep customer understanding and the journey of the product, not just ethnographics, but really taking it.
And you know, besides the customer's understanding and the whole life cycle of the product, it's also about behaviors. I mean, what I find really powerful about design is that it can really change behaviors, especially when you have the wherewithal, the ambition, also the lack sometimes, but you know, the energy and vision to work on products like the iPod, like the iPhone, or like the thermostat that go everywhere. You know, that's what I'm always amazed about design, because it can really change things, behaviors. I don't want to say change the world because it's always so, you know, like exaggerated, but it can really do that. So when did you understand this potential, the importance of design? Sorry, I'm speaking about my own obsession, but when did you understand that design was the key?
Well, I had an inkling when I was young. Mm-hmm. And this was very young. Being, you know, growing up sometime in Detroit, and with my grandfather in the garage, he was a Depression era kid, he was, and we would save everything, and we would repair everything. It was, you know, like the crazy labs here, you were making everything, and with my grandfather, and we would repair all these old homes around Detroit. And we were we were repairing my parents' house. My grandfather and I, my brother, were repairing my parents' house, fixing, because they were old houses. And my grandfather would like put it all together, and let's say it was a screen door, and the screen door was working just fine. And then my mom would come through and go, "Yeah, it works, but it's ugly. It's horrible. What is that? We can't have that in the house." And my grandfather's like, "What are you talking about? It works just fine. There's no problem here." And she's like, "No, we can't have that. We can't have that." And so there was this huge fight. And my dad was also in fashion. So my dad worked for Levi's way back in the day for 33 years. So I was always seeing fashion. I was touching fabrics. My dad was teaching me about fabrics and sales and all this stuff. And then my mom would make sure the house was right, and she cared about all the design pieces. And my grandfather's over there in the basement fixing everything. And so I had this kind of weird, you know, sense of like, oh, there's more to this than just making something functional.
Yeah. Also, right. Yeah, because aesthetic intention, it doesn't have to be prettiness, it can be punk, but aesthetic intention is a form of respect towards other human beings, towards your customer, right?
Exactly.
And we should all demand better, right? And you know, I'm seeing right now Nest here, it was like the thermostat was amazing. So let's go back for a moment, because Elise is like commanding the slides. So let's talk about your process for a moment, because I'm sure that you know, the students want to know about your process. And now that we talked about your engineering background, your epiphany of aesthetics, and also the lessons that you learned with General Magic, we can talk a little bit about the process. So maybe we can go back to the first slide and talk about how it happens.
So first I should say that it has evolved, obviously.
Yeah.
right? From General Magic, there's that first thing, because I'm with all my heroes, and they must know design, and they made the Mac. They must understand all this stuff. And so I've had to go through a series of failures. So I had 10 years of failures, it's all in the book, of understanding product design, user interface, customers, understanding then sales and marketing and all of the other pieces of the puzzle through many 10 years worth of failures and a lot of hard work. And so it has evolved. So let me tell you where it is now for me. And it really starts with pain. Where is the pain? Too many people go off and think about, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? And I did that early on, but I really want to focus on the pain. Show me everyday pain that a large number of people have, and let's start there. And so then I look at, so I say, okay, there's pain, and then I say, well, why hasn't anyone solved that yet? So then I look at the competition, and I look the products that are out there. And I say, okay, why didn't they solve for this? What's the problem? And sometimes it's just a big company. They just don't know any better, and they can't get out of their own way, right? We know how many big companies, and a lot of students and faculty know, you have incredible ideas, and then it goes to die in some large company when they work with you, right? Because of the inertia of the whole big wheels turning there, and so I start with with the pain, the competition, and then I say, wait a second, has technology changed since these products were initially conceived? And is it a deep enough technology that could unseat? It's a fundamental thing that changes the game so much that if you change and add the technology, it shakes all the stuff above. And that's what we found with the iPod. That's what we find with the iPhone.
Yeah.
We found it with Nest as well, which was literally, in the case of the iPod, it was storage. It was storage, and MP3 was the defining tech to solve the pain of carrying lots of CDs because you're a music lover, right? And you might not say that's a real important pain, but it is pain for some of us. I was a DJ, and I carried 2,000 CDs with me, and it was pretty heavy. And then the pain of iPhone, so what was iPhone all about? So the new tech there was multi-touch screens and all these other things, but what the real pain was, you were carrying a laptop for your productivity tools, you were carrying your mobile phone for communications and texting, and then you were carrying an iPod for entertainment, and we had games and videos and stuff at the time. And you would carry 3 things with all the different cables and everything else, and it was lugging. And so we just said, okay, we're going to put this all in using multi-touch interface and next generation interface and apps to put all of those things in your pocket. So that was the pain we were solving. And we had to bring all of these different technologies together to solve that pain. At Nest, the pain was energy. We were just spending so much on energy. We didn't, we'd leave it on, and then we'd spend energy when we were at home, or we'd turn it off, and then we were cold or hot when we got home, and we had to turn it on, and we were always fiddling it, and it was ugly as all hell. Right? Absolutely ugly. And then what came about was not just beautiful. It wasn't just a beautiful thing. This was one of the very first AI-enabled products. 2011, we shipped an AI-enabled product. We called it the Nest Learning Thermostat because we couldn't call it the Nest AI Thermostat 14 years ago. Because people would be like, what? I don't want AI in my home. Today, it's like, if it doesn't have AI, they won't even buy it. So that was the enabling technology there. So those are the kind of ways I think. So again, pain, incumbents, technology, and then after that, it's understanding all the layers of customer behavior, understanding the customer very well, the buying cycle. So in the case of a thermostat, you could say, oh, someone buys that. No, it's actually a considered purchase by 2 people. Either the consumers are either environmentally conscious, or they're design conscious because they want something look nice on the wall, or they just want a geeky, cool new product. And you have to understand, in a couple, You know, it's like, oh, one person, it could be the geek, the other person wants the energy savings or the money savings. And so you have to tear apart that dynamic and make sure you get it right in how the product is used and how it's communicating. So you sell it to two people to get the yes.
Yeah, but once the curiosity has ebbed,
Right.
it has to have staying power.
Oh, absolutely.
And because that's something that's really important. So the journey continues. So you have to keep on improving the interface, keep on improving the product, make it more familiar. So I'm sure that there's really a good and strong follow-up.
Oh,
right?
there's always the follow-up. Well, first is just getting it out of the box or getting whatever it is you're using and making sure you set expectations low and deliver high. And so the point with like the iPod or really the iPhone and then Nest was you can solve a problem, a pain, with a painkiller. Mm-hmm. What I try to do, and I work with the teams on, is we try to turn it into a superpower. So you didn't just solve the problem. Because if you solve the problem, it's too rational. It's just, you're rationally solving it. People are like, okay, that's great.
Where's the love?
Well, and if you bring them that emotional superpower, they're like, oh, yeah. And then they want to show it to their friends. Like to me, you know, when people saw the iPhone, remember, it was the Jesus phone. And like, oh my God, look at all the stuff it's doing. And then in Nest's case, they were giving them as gifts and putting them under the Christmas tree and saying, you have to have this. This is the best thing ever. In some cases we had, because we also made it self-installable. So you could install it. And I thought only 40%. We've spent so much time on the installation and putting screwdrivers in the box and all the walkthrough documentation and everything. And we thought it was only going to be 40% of people who would install it. It turned out to be 95% of people self-installed it because it was such a delightful experience. We were getting videos from grandmas who put it in, and we're like, I did it! And they didn't even use the product yet, but they felt this like superpower. They did something they never thought they could. And that's the emotional experience tied with the rational thing to really get people to love the product and then hopefully love the brand for subsequent products.
And by doing that, saving energy. I mean, that's what's amazing, that you, through that kind of delight and the efficiency and the fact that the piece works, you change behaviors, which is so important. So I wanted to ask you, what went wrong with Fuse? What did you not have with Fuse? Though it was the wrong pain that you had?
So at Fuse, here's what basically happened. And this is another lesson kind of that I learned through time, not that I was necessarily cognizant about it. But at Fuse, at Philips, I learned about MP3. And we were doing the very first audio books on handheld. So we were the very first Audible product that could play audiobooks. And then I was like, oh, that could be music. And so we tried to get Philips to do it. Of course, goes to die at Philips. So I started my own company. And things are going well. But then I'm trying to get funding for it.
Oh.
And this is 1999.
So VCs were not really there yet, or they didn't understand. Did VC exist?
The VCs, it's kind of like what's happening right now. And we all know what happened, or some of us know what happened in 2000, was everybody was pouring money into e-commerce and internet websites. They said, there's no future in hardware, just do all this stuff. And so there was no money. And then what happened was 2000 happened and the bottom fell out of the whole internet craze because all the companies didn't hit the numbers they were supposed to hit. And then it was even harder. I was near shutting down the company and I had to go take a consulting job when Apple called because they said, consult for us to what would be ultimately the iPod. So I stayed in the hardware realm. So I was doing hardware products, so General Magic, then Philips, then Fuse. And all during that time, the VCs were like, what are you doing, Fadell? You're not hitting this internet wave. You're crazy. Why are you still doing this stuff? That was a whole decade ago. That's over, right? And then Apple calls, the iPod comes out. And 6 months into it, The VCs are calling.
Yeah.
Hey, do you wanna?
So Steve Jobs was already
Yes,
back at
Steve
Apple.
was already
so
back.
He knew, even though you might have failed a fuse or whatever, he knew that you
Yes,
had it.
absolutely.
That
He knew
you trusted hardware together with software. So
Right. Exactly. Oh, there's the model that
Yay.
I made in my garage, and with my grandfather's fishing weights inside, and put it in Steve's hand. And that was the original iPod
my.
model. It's not like a beautiful thing, but it was enough to show the functionality and the size.
It's all there. It's in the hand. It has that kind of weight and the kind you put probably the fish bait inside because you wanted to also have the right weight. When that leads me to another extremely important part of the design of this kind of objects, which is the interface. You know, today we were having a conversation about interfaces, and there's haptic, there's like voice, there's like tapping
Now
in.
there's voice without voice.
Voice without. No,
You've
what do you
seen-
mean voice without voice?
Oh, so there's a company actually here out of the Media Lab. I'm sure a lot of people know about it. You can actually talk. You just and it knows what you're saying by watching
good,
the muscles.
because it's always
and
so complicated to talk when you cannot talk.
yeah. So there's a whole modality. In Patty May's organization, they
Patty.
invented that you can talk without, you can communicate in a voice interface without actually, actually speaking.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Well,
interesting.
let's go back to various interfaces. I want to go back to the idea of delight because, in the design world, the B word, beauty, has been banned for a long time. There was this fear of beauty, of being too pretty. But in truth, really, once again, there are many different types of beauty, and it is something that really plays a very important function. So in the case of the iPod, it was just a marvel and a delight of interface, and the same with every single product that you have developed. So tell me about the process of developing an interface. Like how many people, let's say the iPod, that wonderful, tell me how it happened, how many people were with you, and how did you get to that haptic feedback that is just so inimitable?
Okay, well, there's a few things, and I put it in the book, and it has been told before, but literally the way that came about was great artists steal. Okay, and so what happened was that you saw the model that I made, and I had an idea for that, and we had not even. It was just, could we physically make something that would seem compelling? And we'll work on all the other details yet, because so we were doing that. And so at the end of the meeting, and Steve goes, "We're going to do this thing." And I was like, "What?" It was one meeting. He greenlighted it to the next phase. I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't even expecting that." And then they go, "Can we show?" And I was still a contractor at the time. They go, "Can we show Tony?" And I'm like, "Show me what?" And so they come out from his office and they bring a Bang & Olufsen phone.
Oh, okay.
And it had a wheel on it.
Oh, that's right, that it did.
It had a wheel on it. It was a decked phone only in Europe. And
But it
went,
was too heavy and
it was all
too
that stuff, but it was like,
expensive.
and it was like that. And it was like, they're like, "You see that? We think that's the interface." I said, and I was like, "Yeah, that could be it." And they're like, "Do you think you make that?" I'm like, "Oh, absolutely, no problem." So I knew exactly what to do. And from that was just the fundamental thing. But then there was the treatment of how we did the ID. There was then the subsequent versions, how we got the click wheel happening from the analog mechanical wheel. So there was lots of refinement along the way. But it was really that, and then it was, so that was the hardware interface. But then the software interface, we prototyped many times. And literally 2 weeks before we were going to ship the iPod, before we showed the world, it was 4 of us. It was Jeff Robin, myself, Steve Jobs, and I think Sabi Khan. And we were all sitting there and literally at the whiteboard talking about what the structure should be. We were literally all together, like, "No, not this, put it in this hierarchical order, that."
Yeah,
And
that's how it happens.
And we were literally the 4 of us just finalizing the interface because we had the rough thing, but then we went and implemented it. And that was literally the start from the time this was shown. This was March 2001. We shipped it at October 2001.
Wow.
Tomorrow is the 24th anniversary of the launch of the iPod. We did this in 8 months.
How could it happen so fast? So, and how solid was the distribution infrastructure in October? Was it like a Hail Mary, or was it like
no
solid?
No one believed that we could pull this off. Steve, no, this wasn't Steve's saying you need to. This wasn't anyone else saying it. I knew because I saw how many projects I had worked on that had died. I had 10 years of failure, okay? So I know what happens along the route, especially you have to remember Apple was had $200 million in the bank and $500 million in debt. It was barely breaking even and had less than 1% market share in the US and in Japan for Macs. It didn't have retail. It didn't have anything you knew except one laptop and a couple of desktop computers. That was it, and no one was buying them. So I was like, this may never get out if it takes too long. So I'm like, we gotta just make it happen. And that's what we did. And everybody was like, oh, it'll ship in the springtime of the following year. And we got it done.
So do you think that it's good to be in a situation of high pressure and with little or a lot to lose? Like, just this kind of like either we make it happen or we bust.
I think it's great to have a healthy pressure. And what sometimes happens, and this happens in big corporations and also small startups, is that there's an external pressure of fear and an external pressure of fear from investors saying you're going to run out of money, you got to do this, or the corporation going, we're going to cancel this project because you're not delivering on time and whatever. And I saw that at Philips and other places. I see this in startups all the time. At Apple, Steve treated us like a little infant in terms of like, I have to guard this, I have to feed it, I have to care for it because it's surrounded by teenagers, and like if you don't take care of it in a special way and you take care of it like a teenager, it's never going to grow up, it's going to die. Right? And so you have to think about that. So if you have the right kind of pressure and the right kind of environment, then those things can happen. And it's okay to have that pressure. But if it's the negative kind, where it's like if you don't, it's not going to work. So it was very much it was still a pressure cooker, but it was not this, we're going to cut out your knees if you don't. Yeah,
that's good. So it was conducive for vision and creativity. It was conducive to that, which is very important.
And I learned from my experience at General Magic that took 4 years to get out the door. Like the markets can change, everything can change. So I wanted to make sure for us, we had to get out by that holiday season because Sony was number one in every single audio category. And I was like, Steve, we can build this, but are we really going to be able to sell it? Sony's number one. And that was another thing that was really pressuring us. So he was giving us the right environment, but I felt Sony. And Sony was like one of my, design hero companies, like from the Walkman and everything else. And so I was like, these guys, they could figure it out. And we have to go faster.
So talk about the power of design. Sony and the Sony Walkman was the first time you could move around with this bubble of personal space. And then that bubble of personal space was also enabled by the iPod, but the iPod had more. It had more delight in a way, and also refinements, and it had the Chicago font, and it had all the haptic feedback, and fantastic. And then, okay, let's move on to I'm a geek for these things, as you know. Let's move to the iPhone then. So there's a new technology that still has to be perfected, but there's the touch, screen, and now you have to figure out an object which is an ingot. It doesn't have anymore so much of the hardware qualities that you had worked with in the past. It's an ingot, and then it comes alive when you start it. So how did you move about in this kind of new environment?
It didn't start that way. So what it really started was, it was an iPod. So it was supposed to be, so what was happening at the time was iPod was getting a lot, it was 50 to 60% of the revenue of the company. It was the thing taking off. We had 85, 90% market share worldwide for digital music players. And all the cell phone companies, smartphones, Nokias and everything, they didn't like it. They were like, oh, we can do that on a mid-tier phone. There was no smartphones really at the time. So they were starting to try to adopt music playing functionality in their phones. And so we had an existential crisis that if we knew that people only wanted to carry one thing in their pocket at the end of the day, and if it was a mobile phone and it played music, that was more likely than just an iPod alone. And so we had to figure out we were saying, how are we going to compete with these mobile phones that we're going to try to eat our lunch? There was already people, like Nokia saying you could play MP3s. It was nowhere near as nice, but they were getting there. And so, so the first project was making an iPod plus phone. So literally it was the same iPod that you know with the click wheel, and then we put a phone inside of it. And we were all like, how is this going to work? And Steve's like, oh, you're going to just select the name from the wheel. And they were like, yeah, but sometimes you don't have the name in your contact library. You're going to have to dial it. And it turned into a rotary phone. And so you took this thing that was really, really cool, and it was like, that'll work. Yeah, we can make calls. But then people are like, how do I dial a phone number? And then how do I do texting? Right? How do I text? And there was not enough speech to text at the time. We didn't have any of that stuff. It was,
oh my God, speech.
Yeah, speech. Yeah, forget it. And and he had us working on that for months going, we're going to make it. We're going to figure out the right combination of buttons and everything and modalities to make this work. And we were like banging our heads. And we're like, Steve, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. You keep trying. We're like, it doesn't work, Steve. It doesn't work. And so there was a point of resignation where he's like, shit, it doesn't work. But he goes, come over here, Tony. And I was like, what? And he's like, a secret room. I didn't even know this was going on. There was a secret room making a touchscreen Macintosh. Ooh. So it was a touchscreen Macintosh, and it was a new technology, capacitive touch instead of resistive, like we used at General Magic and Philips and all those other things. And I hadn't seen capacitive touch because I built touchscreens before. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. The thing was, the touchscreen, the Mac, was projected from one of like these big projectors onto a ping pong table. Oh. And then the capacitive touch was all around the ping pong table. It was this huge thing. And he's like, see, check it out. And you could do multiple touches and all this stuff. And he goes, what if you had this on that? Because we were also making a video iPod at the time, which was a really big iPod with a virtual wheel. Wow. Mm-hmm. Because we were doing movies at the time. So how do we get maximum screen space? So we were doing a video iPod, an iPod plus phone, and then we had this touchscreen Mac, but it was huge. And he goes, you know that full screen iPod you're making with virtual controls, can you put this touchscreen on it instead of this other one I was doing? And I was like, but Steve, it's the size of a ping pong table. Yes. And so over a course of 2.5, almost 3 years, we had to miniaturize all the technology, build a whole new software stack, a new processor, a whole new level of modality, all the different apps, and we threw away the design 2 times. So we threw away the iPod plus phone, we threw away the video large screen iPod, and then we made 2 full versions of an iPod or iPhone, threw those away, and then built the final one.
And at that point, there was not even a concept of a minimum viable product. It was not even an MVP. They were all like, you went from model to prototype, and otherwise you would throw everything out. There was not the same process of iteration and test that exists right now, right?
No. We would literally take it to a certain extent, and then we would test the radio, the antennas, because we never really made portable antennas, or we didn't make the touchscreen, or was it fast enough? So we had to get it to a certain point, and we're like, oh, we hit a wall again, but we know what to do, so throw that away, start over again. And then we would continually modify, because the first model of an iPhone, it looked like an iPod Mini. If anyone remembers that, it was an aluminum extruded case.
It was a
now the
little
iPhones
bit
are
more
aluminum,
like a
but
chocolate bar.
Yeah, it was like
it had a different proportion.
exactly.
Right.
So that was the first thing. But then the antennas didn't work in that. Because we didn't know better. We didn't really know how to make those kinds of things. So we had to go through this process. But it was high speed. So 3 products in 2.5 years, plus those other 2 that we threw away, plus all the software, all the other stuff. So, and it was a lot of people coming together. So I had a big team, but then we had a big operating system team, and then we had a big applications team as well, plus the whole user interface. So
plus the whole ecosystem outside of Apple, because then you had, I remember there was this little keyboard you could plug into, I think it was an Ericsson phone. So it was just the insanity of what everybody was testing around the world.
Yeah,
it was like fervor.
It was crazy. And, we didn't even have an app store. There were no apps. Third-party apps in the first iPhone. So
of course.
again, iterate. Now we're on iPhone 17, and it's aluminum, and they figured out how to make antennas work and all that stuff.
So out of those 300 patents that you have, were they all 300 different pains, or they were ways to perfect solutions to different pains?
A little of both. A little of both. I really got to charge. Apple was really big on patents. Philips was as well. So I got to spend and so was General Magic too. So I got to do. I just learned that whole way of doing it and like keep pushing the edge. And so a lot of it was novel. In fact, so much so that when General Magic went bankrupt, a company came in and bought all the patents and all the technology from General Magic, and I wanted to try to buy my stuff back, but this company bought it all. And then I got a call.
Which company was it? Is the company that bought it still alive? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
right.
Nathan Mervold's.
Nathan
bought it all. So Nathan bought it all. And then he started going through all the patents. And he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, Tony, can I get your help with something?" He goes, "Your patent," because I did this special serial bus. He goes, "Your patent is actually fundamental to USB, to the universal serial bus." That was what we were doing. So it was a fundamental patent. And he's like, "I need your help because I'm going to sue everybody on USB." I said, "I'm out." But it was literally, we were doing fundamental patents.
It was a heroic company. It was like Xerox PARC, right? Xerox PARC is where the graphic user interface, I'm saying it for the younger students here. So the interface of the Mac and the mouse, all of these amazing inventions were made. So it was a universal donor, General Magic.
Yeah, General Magic.
Oh, positive.
Exactly. All kinds of different things. In fact, at General Magic, we created and invented, and this was really Bill Atkinson and Susan Kerr, created emojis.
Yeah.
And we were working with NTT Docomo at the time, and they go, "That's really cool." And when General Magic died, they went and implemented emojis on the Japanese handsets, and that's how it all took off.
And they're now in the collection of MoMA also.
And then now they're at MoMA.
Yes. With the iPod, with the original, well, not the original Macintosh icons, because Steve didn't let me have them. He wanted to control every single exhibition that we did at MoMA, and I said, "Sorry, no." So we don't have any, we have Susan Kerr's, the icon designers, we have her notebooks. So right now,
tomorrow, Susan and I are announcing our collaboration in a new product coming out tomorrow. I wanted to show it today, but it's under embargo. I can't today, but tomorrow you'll check it out.
Well, and you'll come and see the page turner at MoMA before the exhibition ends. But so right now you are at Build Collective and you are advising startups. You're dealing with all the most cutting edge technologies. Today we were discussing the fact that I'm really jealous because basically all of the companies in the world go to him to show him what they're doing, and that's what I would dream of having as a curator. But so you're in this privileged position of really seeing what's going on in the world of both software and hardware and all the intersection thereof. What is your diagnosis of where we're at when it comes to understanding the power of design to change behaviors for the better?
Well, I believe when it's done, it's being considered, when it's really thoughtful, we can do that. We
And
can
are these companies
absolutely do it.
doing it? Are the
Some
companies
of them
that you
are.
see?
Some of them absolutely are. We're seeing this in some of our AI medical scribe company, in a company called Nabla. They're really going off and using AI in the right way, not using huge, large language models that hallucinate, but really clearly defined medical ones to help doctors have much better patient engagement. And so we make sure that they can stay with the patient, they're not writing down notes, and they're always engaged, and getting much better reports to the patient about how they can do better care, how they should take their prescriptions, all that stuff. Also how they do the billing and how they do the insurance. So when it's well considered and it's well done, it is a superpower for these doctors and these nurses who use it. So absolutely, but you have to take the time and not rush it out. Too much that we see today, like LLMs and the AI that we're seeing, it's a technology. It's not a product. And it's like you figure out what it's good for if it's good for you, right? And if you look at a lot of for consumers and like, oh, isn't that cool? I can make those cool graphics, or I can, it'll do some things, it'll clean up my text or whatever. But when you're a company, especially doctors or lawyers, finance or what have you, and you're going to trust your brand with adopting these things, you really need to understand how they're built and how they're going to supercharge your whatever you're doing. And too many of these things are still just demos, and they're getting a lot of money. It reminds me a lot of 1998 and 1999 of like, they can't deliver.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this AI medical scribe called Nabla that we've been doing, it's been 7 years in development. It's not been the last 2 years or 18 months or 6 months. It's been a long time, and really understanding the customer journey and the patient journey and how it works.
So important.
It's so important, and that context, that personalization, those things are what makes it so powerful. Not these huge models underneath that are not really bonded to the user in the right way.
Yeah, and that's really an understanding of design. I mean, there's a slide of my work over there, just because we were discussing this power that design has to take technological revolution, revolutions in technology and in science, and transforming them into life. And this is an exhibition that I did in 2008 that was about this. But I think it's important to also clarify that design sometimes doesn't have form. It still has to have delight, but sometimes it's about designing behaviors, as you were saying. So there's a lot of design in AI, good and bad, because design exists both good and bad, that is either non-expressed formally, but is in this kind of journey that you're talking about. It's not only the interface, but it's also the interaction that I think is the kind of translation of the new generation of design skills that are necessary that you might also make here.
That's my hope. My hope is to learn, especially with a lot of the new technologies, is to see how far we can push my model of how to do this and how we can do it, and maybe we'll invent some new other ways and prototyping ways to get these iterations even sooner in the design process to have even a better effect along the journey. So we can do I always say that you might not get to version 2.0 with your first product, but you, instead of doing version 0.8 on your first product, you could get to version 1.2 or 1.3 with your very first product.
You can model
because
it.
you have enough modeling and you can simulate things and that stuff. So.
And you can also perform it. That's something else that you have here at MIT that you probably will discover in the next 12 hours. No, but the art. So it's really interesting how performance has become central to architecture and to design in the past few years, and to the art world in general. It's very interesting because
performance in what way?
Well, performance right now, it could be a dance, it could be the interpretation, it could be a Marina Abramovic interpretation. So this idea of testing by performing, right? I feel that it could be something really interesting to include in this new path or new program. I just thought about it because also the slide is Talk to Me, which is this other exhibition that was about the communication between people and objects. And, modeling in the past has been very much thought of as computer modeling, and instead modeling it with human or with AIs that behave like humans might enable one to really think of these dynamic design objects. We're getting too geeky here, but
I like where you're going.
No, I know. But so because of the complexity of the new design products that we're seeing in the world, there might need to be also this kind of performance test.
To take that just a little bit further and a little bit more geeky, we're doing that today, and you're starting to see it with the humanoid robots. And they're doing performances. People are performing acts in a way and doing tasks and chores and doing this stuff, and that's how we're using to train all of these things. Not saying that's all going to work and everything else, but it is, in fact, a much more visceral way. It's not programming anymore. It's using the human form to program.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. So right now at Build Collective, you see all sorts of projects. And of course, many of them are about AI. And the search for the perfect interface for AI is still very much embryonic, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The issue that we have is that there are there's new forms of modalities which we spoke about earlier, but we're still constrained in the same world that's already been built, and so everyone is trying to map on it. So if I remember, it was if you remember pre-iPhone, they were trying, or pre-GUIs, it was like, okay, we're going to do whatever we can inside of a texting interface, and then the Mac showed up, and all the applications had to work in this new modality of graphical user interfaces. And then people were then trying to take that same modality and saying, we're going to make a smartphone with it. And Microsoft was trying to make a smartphone for 4 years before the iPhone, but it was using the old modalities. And then we brought the multi-touch and a whole new way of interaction, and then all of a sudden it spurred a new set of applications and ways of doing it. And if we look at it, then they added Siri and Alexa onto it, and voice. And now what you had was multi-touch, right? And so you had multi-touch, and that was really interesting. And then voice became, and multi-touch, and then a keyboard. So you're swiping, and then you have a keyboard as the secondary input. Then they add voice as a tertiary input. And so no one ever reimagined the application as voice first. So you have to say, this is the primary way you interact with it, and then figure out. So I think so many of our stacks of software, not just the hardware, have to get changed to be able to really have this interface that we are starting to imagine, like the movie Her and those things. Mm-hmm. There's a whole new way of doing that, but we have to get out of the structures we've already been building and stop trying to think we're going to take it, a shortcut, and we'll just be able to AI enable it with the current modalities. And
that's the toughest thing. Unlearning is the toughest thing, right?
Baby beginner.
And that's where somebody like Steve had that ability.
Absolutely.
He didn't even have to unlearn. He just was studying tabula rasa every single day. But I think that's something that we might train ourselves to do. These are my slides. Oh my God, I don't want to take away from it, but these are collections of MoMA just to show that I speak the same language a little bit. But it really is about the unlearning process in order to then figure out the pains or the new behaviors that are necessary and move in that direction. And that's probably the toughest thing.
Staying beginner, yes. Unlearning the old stuff and then getting rid of the habituation.
Yes.
So it's those two things. It's breaking out of what we've done as well as remembering the pain that we've habituated away and putting those together in a new bucket and trying to see what you can come up with. It's a lot harder, of course, because it's not evolutionary. It's revolutionary. Yeah. It's a leap.
All right, MIT, that's what's in store for you in January. So now that we had this great conversation, I'm going to open up to questions from the audience. And, we have, I think, one microphone or two. You're bringing the microphone. Okay, there's going to be one microphone. There are two microphones. So if you don't mind, you can queue up behind the microphones and ask your questions. Maybe you can introduce yourselves as you go.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Jacqueline. I'm an MIT student here in systems engineering and management. And my question is, you talked about like starting with the point of pain. I'm curious, what are the pains that you're seeing right now as being the most prevalent to build upon? What are you seeing?
Oh, okay. I see so much pain. It's weird. Like, and maybe this also happens for you. Is when I go through the world, because I try to stay beginner all the time. There's so many things that frustrate me. Like every time, I'm like, who designed this? How could it be this way? And like, it's horrible to be around me because I'm always, screaming about something. Like, that's got to get fixed. I think you have to look at all of the disciplines. Like, look at agriculture, look at fashion. There are so many pains everywhere. It's not just consumer products that have issues, but we finally have the technology. We finally have the tools to be able to bring these superpowers to people in these industries. And they don't have to just be big ag. It can be small family farms and those things where we can bring that down. So it's the pain that you feel. And in whatever context you come from and whatever experiences you have, just look for those things, stay beginner and find those and then work from that, like I said, and see if it touches enough people to then go after it. So I have my own, but there are so many that you can go find in whatever domain that you really geek out on.
And every now and then I'm going to jump in with my own questions if they follow up. But for instance, talking about these pains from all over, from different sources, do you also have companies from different areas of the world, like companies that are trying to leapfrog limitations? Do you also have startups from Africa or from different?
We have startups everywhere on every continent but Africa right now. And we're trying to find some there, but we're in all different things and we're in all different technologies. So we're in agriculture, we're in textiles, we're in semiconductors, we're in medical, we're in drug discovery, we're in material science. So we do all of those different things and with teams around the world. And it's wonderful because the human nature and pain is everywhere, and how you build things is, and especially teams and things, is more or less the same everywhere, which is wonderful that it transfers.
Thank you. We'll go one side. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, Tony. Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan, designer at the Design Intelligence Lab. I'm working on objects that learn and adapts with people at home. Question in general, we're trying to make objects that understand people, and people can have their own superpower, their own set of modalities, interaction around it. I wonder, what do you think about how, as student researchers, we can contribute to these larger world of like AI physical devices where we don't necessarily have the deployment or the data necessary to like understand how people interact with it in a larger scale?
What I would say is, and too many times people get so, and this is in the book, get enamored with hardware. They get enamored with physical objects that they spend so much time working on the physical object instead of the problem and the larger things and seeing how they can prototype it with software and other things. It might not be perfect, but trying to deploy it at some kind of scale with, expensive things, but you get enough of them so you can get data. So do not always think that you need to make the object unless there's something so inherent in the object itself to get for you to get special data. Try to see if you can get some facsimile of it created so it can inform you, so you can take the next step to see if you really need hardware. Because at the end of the day, I can't stand hardware. Hardware is
That's
very hard.
That's such a big lesson. You're so right.
It's so hard. And most people, they want to focus on, and they get, isn't this cool? And I'm like, no.
You were telling me today about that kind of AI seed that you can put in your own toys and in your own objects. That's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. and so to what Paul's mentioning is that in China, there's instead of making AI-enabled toys, they make a little clip. And the clip is just AI enabled, so you clip it to your kid's favorite doll, and you can then talk to the doll, because it's not a new doll, it's the same one, but it gets these imbued with new interactions.
It's fabulous. So steampunk, I love it.
Yeah, and it's like $25, $30, something like that. So think about other ways to hack it, and that doesn't mean you're going to ship it that way, but figure out how to hack the system to get what you need to move confidently to make sure you want to do the hardware stuff.
Thank you.
Okay? Cool. Thanks for
Yay.
the question.
Tony.
Oh, magician.
Yeah.
Magician power.
You have to introduce yourself.
I'm
Yes,
Megan
yeah,
Smith.
you should
As if.
definitely.
I'm
should
Megan.
should I introduce you?
I don't know.
Yes, that's fun. Okay.
So Megan and I met. She was already at General Magic, but Megan and I met at General Magic. We worked together on the same teams.
Yep.
They're all in the hardware. She was doing the devices, touchscreen devices.
Everything you physically see, because I'm course 2, mechanical engineering.
She was even saying one day these devices that we were going to make were going to turn into a Dick Tracy smartwatch.
Yeah.
So anyways, but she's done much more than that. She's a huge MIT alum and supports so many things here. But she was also the CTO of the U.S. government
Of
back in the
United
day.
States, yeah, for President Obama.
For President Obama. So and much more accomplished than I can, but that's just a smattering of what she's really been able to do.
Thanks, Tony.
And happy birthday yesterday.
Thank you.
Happy
Oh, yeah,
birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy
So
birthday.
I was a student when the old building was new, and what I wanted to bring out is Jerry Wiesner, who was MIT president, was President Kennedy's science advisor. I got to do that for President Obama. And one of the things that a lot of people know about is that Vannevar Bush, we're very proud at MIT of Vannevar Bush because he was our engineering dean, went to DC and advised FDR. And he wrote this paper after the war, after we invented all the technologies that helped us win the war, could we do this at peace? And so we use that, science, the endless frontier, which becomes really the NSF and all the funding, all these things. I bring it up because one of the things he says in there is something you and I could witness today for these folks, and that is, he says, we can only achieve it, and it's for the U.S., so you can think the world, but he's talking about the U.S., with the full creative and productive energies of the American people. And so thinking about belonging and inclusion, one of the things Tony and I have experienced is that we got to be mentored by a hugely diverse team of people who created General Magic. And we don't always tell that story, but Lucia Hicks-Williams, an amazing African-American technical leader, Joanna Hoffman, course 8 from here, who is Steve Jobs' sparring partner. Steve doesn't do that magical stuff alone, it's teamwork. And so one of the things I noticed when the Jobs movies came out, all of a sudden, one of the lines in the Steve Jobs movie is, Susan made the bag.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, Susan made she's probably the most prolific artist you've ever had because she made all the icons and emojis.
That you look at every day.
My point is a little bit about hidden figures and the unusual opportunity that Tony and I have to share with you that we lived and witnessed a super diverse team that taught us, and we can think of who taught them.
And we have to remember 50% of the employees at General Magic were women.
Women and people of
This
color,
in 1990.
everybody. Yeah. And so that's not as well known, and so sometimes we have this weird idea, and as history is told, it gets told wrong. Even Tony and I on the patent he's talking about, I'm actually on the original patent, and I got dropped off it, and it's really no one's fault. It's just hidden figuring. And so this happens, and it's real. And so I want us to have Tony and I share with you the full creative and productive energies of the American people, whatever language and words you want to use. That's how we're going to fix everything.
Well said. Well said, as always, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Please.
Hi, Tony. My name is Evan. I'm an Irish industrial designer here in Boston. I probably speak for everybody. It's such a pleasure to sit down, listen to both of you on stage. I actually figured out I wanted to be an industrial designer from a iPod I got on my birthday in 2005. So I credit a lot of what got me interested in design from the team that you, Johnny and Steve, and everybody else working on the iPods created. This could be a really simple question. I'm always interested when is done when designing hardware. I'd love for you to talk about your time working as an individual contributor versus as a founder at Nest. When do you decide when is hardware done? You can noodle forever on an idea or a product, but when do you rely on expertise from Johnny or Steve or you to know when a product is ready to ship?
Well, that's a great question. And what I learned, but not to do a general magic, which we did it wrong, but what I learned over time, and it's something I also wrote in the book, is what you do is at the outset of the project, is that I say, and this is, is something incredibly important, is that when you start to understand the why and the customer and all the kind of various details, you write a press release. You write a 1.5-page press release about what that product's going to ship. And it has the fundamental 4 or 5 key differentiating features: the price, the access, which customer, how you're selling it, the pain point you're solving, all that stuff. And so when you know that you've fulfilled that thing that you really believe in, and the market hasn't changed, let's say, because you've done it, and you've done it usually in a year or 9 months or 14 months, you really don't want to go longer than that, because the environment changes outside. Your team can change. Sometimes people leave. I always wonder, like, how do they build these bridges and buildings when they take 15 years? And you're like, the teams change over 5 times before, they actually get it done. It's like, it's crazy. So you want to make sure that, because the world of technology, the world of product and design moves so rapidly, and it's going to go even faster, you want to have a defined time bound, but make sure you understand what the script is. Just like when they make a movie, they don't make them. Typically what happens is, in Silicon Valley or around the world, is they shoot the movie. I'm giving you an analogy. They shoot the movie, and at the end they go, let's have the script. You would never make a movie that way. And so make sure you have the script when you're ready to start the project in earnest after you've done the prototyping, so you know when you're done. And you don't start going, you get at the end and you go, oh, we need to add this one feature, and we need to add this one feature. That's the exact wrong way to do it, because you're not confident in what you're building. And because most people can't get more than 4 features in their line to buy something. So you really have to distill it down, understand, and then you'll know that you're ready to go. And then you put it out in the world, and then you get feedback, and you know what you wished you would have done. And then you make the next one. That's why we have an iPhone 17, and we didn't stop at iPhone 3 or 18 generations of iPod, right? Because, there was always more to do. But you got to know at the beginning what you're really trying to achieve with that instance.
May I ask a quick follow-up to that? Happy if it's a no.
I'm going to. Can you hold it? Can you go back to to the end
Thanks,
of the
great
line,
question.
and then just stay there. Don't sit down. We might get to you again. Please.
Hey. So it seems like I'm going home tonight with so much inspiration from your talk, Tony and Paola. Thank you so much. So my name is Tarek. I'm originally from Lebanon as well. And coming from design background, architecture teaches us how to detect the pain points, how to approach them with nice solutions. And lots of people detect problems. And they understand the problem and they find solution. But here's the question, how to approach those problems. For example, in Lebanon, I faced a problem one day where I found a friend who wanted to drop out of college because of difficulty of transportation. I detected that pain and decided to go into a startup, my company, Rila, and to build a carpooling app for making student transportation more affordable. So why did you tackle that pain point that was behind the iPod, iPhone, Nest, and all those products? Why did you go for all this while lots of other people might have detected that same pain point and those same problems? Why did you choose to do that?
Well, number one was I was already making that at my startup Fuse. So I was already doing like digital music players, because I felt the pain, because I love music. So sometimes it's you love something so much, you're going to amp it up, right? So you get 1,000 songs in your pocket, like, that's great. It's in your pocket, and you have all-day battery life. And so that was that. Like I explained with the iPhone, it was really about taking all 3 products that you were carrying with you and trying to put them together in one thing. Nest was the same thing, trying to save energy. So it was really personal things where I felt pain, or I wanted more pleasure in a way to be able to do that. So, but there's all kinds of other things that we do, business to business companies, these kinds of things. Like a real big pain for me is the plastics problem on here. And we have one company that we've been working on 7 years that's solving that actually. And we're already shipping the solution, but it took a long time. So it depends on what it is. But it's always something that it's a pain that I want to take on that I can feel myself. So it drives me. And then I can also communicate it. When I can feel it, I can communicate it to the other people on the team, other investors, whatever else. And then people adopt that as their own as well. And then they continue to say, we're on a mission, let's go for it, right? So you really want to pick something that you can take on personally, that you can also allow other people to take on personally and drive together.
Beautiful.
Whatever
Thank you.
that is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you so much for being here. My first digital device is one of those white iPods without screen. So this is like a crazy moment for me. I also read the book. I have a Nest at home. It's like just crazy.
Thank you. Thanks for being a
Big
customer.
fan. Sorry. I'm an entrepreneur. My grandmother has Alzheimer's, so I'm building something in senior care. I think one thing I find really interesting that you shared today is the time horizon it takes to build something that's really good. And the company you mentioned that it took them 8 years, you mentioned 10 years of failure before you actually put everything together and creating something that's really meaningful. So my question is today, I'm an entrepreneur, like I raise money, and then you have all those expectations from investors, external people, your employees, right? Like people you're working with around you. How do you think about it takes time to build something that's great, while also you need to get a salary. Your employees need to get a salary. You need to iterate and make mistakes in this process. How should you be grounded, thinking about the mistakes that we will be making along the way, but also making sure the investors align, making sure you still have funding, making sure you can keep iterating.
Right.
Got it.
Something great.
Yeah, I get it. I think the biggest thing to understand is that that's the way we learn. And so you can see it as failure, like if you're really stressed and it's failure, or you can say this is something we've learned and we've taken it to a certain, we've taken it this far, like the first iPhone, and then we had to throw it away, and we had to throw it away. So you have to understand that is the learning process. The iteration process is the learning process, and it's not failure. It's not like when you go to school here and then you fail a test or who knows what, like that's, typically it's just the beginning, right? And so you have to treat it as such, and if you can make sure you have investors who are aligned with that, and you make sure that you don't overshoot, like in other words, setting the expectations wrong, but also taking on too much risk. So many projects, and everybody has such big appetites, and they have such big ideas. It's about, you have to understand that in the fullness of time, maybe you can get to that. So what are the way stations along the way to get there that you can ship or what have you, to get feedback, to get the business going, to go along? And you have to make sure your team understands that, your investors understand that. If they're all trying to shoot for, it's got to work the first time, it's not going to go. You have to understand, and I have a whole chapter on it, it takes 3 times. First, you build if you build a good 1.0, you build the product first, then you fix the product, that's 2.0, and then version 3.0 is build the business. You're not building the whole business at the same time you're building the product. You have to figure out what you're doing, then you can figure out the right business around it and all the other pieces of the puzzle to go. And you have to understand this is a marathon and it isn't the first product. You got to know you got to push through, and you're going to fail along the way and learn. Okay, thanks.
Please.
Hi, my name is Elle Scheffel. I'm a student of art history at Wellesley College and architecture here at MIT. And my question is actually for Paola. I'm really interested in how MoMA has sort of created an archive of these great design objects. And I'm wondering how you see your work as sort of a collaboration between designers and innovators, and sort of what conversations you seek to open in exhibitions and in interactions with the public.
Thank you for the question. There's an exhibition right now that is really condensing everything that you asked and everything that we discussed today. It's an exhibition that's mostly objects from the collection. It's called Pirouette, because I wanted to call it Pivot, but the name is taken by a podcast, so I wanted to do Pirouette. So objects that changed society, that changed the way we live, either directly in a disruptive way or indirectly through other designers. And part of that exhibition are the emojis, the ones by NTT Docomo, are the icons by Susan Kerr, is the Sony Walkman, is the Macintosh 128K, and also, there's also Spanx, and there's also the monoblock chair and Crocs. I mean, it really is about showing how design changes behaviors. And the collaboration, I've been at MoMA for 31 years, and it's amazing and beautiful, the power that you have to make people come to a museum to see Matisse and Picasso's, and because the doctor said they had to take those vitamins, but then they come into the exhibitions of design, and all of a sudden they stay there 2 hours because they recognize themselves in these objects. Those are their objects, but at the same time, there's this distance because they're in a museum. All of a sudden, they're on a pedestal. So we create that void to fill with a deeper understanding of what that object means for life. So I'm trying to just say it in a very condensed way, but what I said before is my motto, which is revolutions might happen in science and in technology and in politics, but designers are the ones that make them into life. And that's why I want to be close to designers. I want to be close to scientists. That's why I want to be close to artists, because, as Megan said, it's by all working together that we can make something good happen.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Huh?
Thank you for doing what you do
really
show.
Thank you too.
Yeah, no, because people can really learn from that, and you have a special eye on how design can really change the world, or change humanity.
People, and then the world, hopefully.
Humanity.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Hale from the Critical Matter Group. So I really agree with the product designs. Start with the why and start with the pinpoint. And I also did a lot of startup before, and I have really great teams of the design teams. So every designers in the teams, they going to find the pinpoint and say, we want to fix the problem because the user have this problem, so we can try to do that. But then, because I think my design philosophy is kind of different, so I'm telling them that this is a problem, but I think as a designers, what we have to do is to have the design's intuition to really to make the innovation. It's not for having a problem to fix a problem, but then it's I know there's a problem that with the new technology, what's the really innovation is to change the behaviors with the design intuition rather than I'll always understand the problem and fix the problems. So we did a lot of experience. So we make 10 designs. Maybe 9 of the designs are really bad. The user says, they're just not happy. But there's one design they will say, this is really cool, really interesting, because this is something new.
Let's get to the question.
Yeah. The question is in this time of the AI, how can we really balance, because AI is really new things, how can we really balance the user need, the innovations, the intuition of the design?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here's the thing. That's why there is the designer or a clear point of view. And it has to come from the leader or the team, the design leader or what have you, of what is the absolute intent and what falls in and what falls out. Because, now what we've done is we can turn, with AI, we can turn, just like we did with A/B testing of websites of different designs, and it does this, and people click more here. And so you get this data-driven design thing. And now what you can do is you can make 20 different interfaces and then go test them and say that's what the users like more than this. That might work for optimizations of something that's working well, like further optimizations. But when you're doing a 1.0, you have to have, I believe, you have to have a real point of view of who you're fixing it for, why you're fixing it, and how you're going to fix it, and what is that critical eye of how it's going to work. And you have to project yourself, and you're just going to say, I believe this is the right reason that it should exist for these reasons, and it shouldn't be that. And that's where the critical eye of design comes in and saying yes and no. Not a tool tells me or a set of data tells me. It's an informed gut that I get from some of those tools and data, but there's still a critical eye that makes those selections, says this is in or that's not. And that's what was so amazing about Steve Jobs, is because he was the critical eye. He might not have been the designer, but he was that critical eye that say yes, no, a little bit like this, right, and those kinds of things. So it's still the human in the loop to figure out what it is you're really trying to do. And the tools just help to inform your gut.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I think we'll take the last two. I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
You and then the lady.
I'm going to be quick because it's a bit similar to the
Yes.
other question. But
Okay.
So basically, you spoke about the pinpoint for the iPod, and I feel like it solved like a problem and a pinpoint for many people, but also it created a lag for like all the other people that like didn't necessarily add this pinpoint, but it created a lag. So my question is, how can you predict that you're solving a pinpoint, but then you also like create a lag to other people that didn't necessarily add this pinpoint?
Yeah, without a doubt, there's always unintended consequences, right, with any design. So I had people coming to me, oh my God, the iPod's so great, I love it, blah, blah, blah. And then I had another friend who's a really close friend and a ex-magician, general magician. She was like, I can't stand the iPod because now it's isolated everybody from each other. And they, you know, it's like, so you're always going to get these kinds of people who say one thing versus the other. And you just have to understand that with any technology, it's just neutral. It's good or bad. And you have to really try to understand the unintended consequences and, you know, make sure you try to understand them and make sure you know you're doing it for the right reasons. But yeah, there can be ways that you might be hurting something else, but you also have to look at improvements. So people come to me and go, you know, you made the iPhone, you killed because of social media, you killed the planet. You know, I'm like, look, technology can be used for good or bad, and it was never the intention to create social media types. That just was an unintended consequence. Now we need to go and fix it. Same thing with AI. We have to go and fix it because there are too many unintended consequences right now that we're seeing. So as a designer, you can't just drop the mic and say, I'm done and I'm out. You got to keep working on it. And even if I'm not at Apple, I go on TV and I go, you know, and I go on all these news programs. I say, Apple, fix this. This is a problem because I feel really attached to it. And I say, we need, you know, you need to look more closely on how we're affecting societies. And that was something that Steve was really drove home for me when I was there, was make sure you have your design intent of how you're trying to not just how to affect humanity, but how affect humanity in the right way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're the dessert.
All right.
Hi, thank you for taking this last question. I'm Nick. I'm a Aeroastro PhD student working on wearable electronics for spacesuits. And so my question comes from when you talked about Fuse existing at maybe a time that was too early for its existence and not sitting at the right place or right time. And so what advice would you have for technologies that maybe depend on the outside infrastructure meeting you at a certain place in development?
Ooh, good question.
That is a great question,
Yeah.
and that was General Magic as well. General Magic, we were solving problems that weren't gonna happen for 15 years. So in Nest, it took 10 years from the time I had the idea till I actually implemented it, because the technologies weren't aligned yet. So you have to understand, it's not just having the technology be ready, but it's having society be ready to adopt those. Right, and society understands the problem, especially if it's new. A society or a certain set of a society understands the pain point you're trying to solve. So it's all of those things. Now, you know, everyone's running around with Meta glasses, you know, the Meta glasses. But I remember when it was Google Glass and people were glass holes.
Oh
right?
my God, yes.
Right? And I remember when people were running around with Bluetooth headsets in the 90s. You know, in 90s and early 2000s, everyone like, oh, that's crazy. I remember, and you guys won't know this because most of you are not, people were running around with pagers.
Oh my God, yes.
And it was like, pagers, those are only for drug dealers and, you know, and doctors. You know, like, why are you wearing that? So you have to remember, it takes time for society to catch up with all this stuff. So it's not just a technology. So you have to look at all of those things. And that's what I mean by the customer journey. So even if you can make sure that it fits in the customer journey of how they make the decisions and what would be the detractors. And sometimes you just sit on it. And like Nest, I just sat on it for a while until it was like, now's the time. So,
Awesome.
all
Thank
right?
you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I have to say, MIT, you're in for a treat. I think it's going to be really one chance. There's been many, but there are these like individuals that embody all the potential of MIT, and definitely you're one of them. So I can't wait to see what you'll do in January. And it was wonderful to be on stage with you tonight.
Likewise.
And I want to say good luck to all of you, but to John, to Hashim, to Jessica, to like everybody that's involved in this adventure. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. See you around campus.